Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. Happy Friday, it's March 28th. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. A new statewide system is meant to notify people when a pesticide is being sprayed on a field near them.
We don't think this is anything that's meant to demonize or villainize anyone. This is simply basic respect to notify folks whenever there are restricted materials applied next to them so that they could take precautionary measures.
Coming up, we'll learn more about Spray Days California and the impact it could have on the valley. But first, these news headlines. California's high-speed rail project is facing new funding challenges. KVPR's Crescencio Rodriguez Delgado has this report.
The high-speed rail is already the target of the Trump administration. His Secretary of Transportation earlier this year ordered a review of funding awarded by the Biden administration. That was after the state's Inspector General said the project segment from Merced to Bakersfield wouldn't be complete by 2033. Now, the state legislative analyst's office says the project has a $7 billion funding gap to complete that segment. Helen Kirstein is a policy analyst who shared the findings with legislators this week.
There is no specific plan to meet that roughly $7 billion gap from Merced to Bakersfield. We also think there's some risk that that gap could grow.
Kirstein says that could be due to several factors, including inflation and potential funding cuts by the federal government. She told legislators the $7 billion gap needs to be resolved before next summer, or the project faces yet even more delays. For KVPR News, I'm Crescencio Rodriguez Delgado.
A man is facing multiple charges after allegedly threatening a Kern County supervisor. The Kern County Sheriff's Office says it arrested a 61-year-old man this week who they believe is behind the threats. The alleged threats were made via email and were considered credible. The Sheriff's Office did not say which supervisor received the emails, but Supervisor Jeff Flores released a statement to the media where he praised the Sheriff's Office for the arrest. There is still no clear winner in a special election to fill Fresno's 5th District Council seat, but we could have answers as soon as next week. The Fresno County Registrar of Voters says his office is currently reviewing around 130 ballots, and the office expects to release a final count by next Friday. Brandon Vang needs to reach 51% of the vote to win outright. Right now, he stands at 50.1%. A beloved and iconic ice cream shop in the city of Hanford officially has new owners. Superior Dairy went up for sale late last year, leaving questions about its future. On Thursday, city officials announced that a local family has purchased the downtown property. The city says the Zonneveld family has deep roots in Kings County's dairy industry and plans to build on the business's legacy.
Raise a glass with KVPR, Sunday afternoon, May 4th, for KVPR's wine tasting and more, featuring fine wines from California and beyond, local craft beer, delicious food, live music, and a silent auction, all on the amazing grounds of the Lester Estate in Fresno, where Van Ness Extension meets the San Joaquin River. All proceeds benefit KVPR, so purchase your tickets today at kvpr.org/wine.
And now to our main story. The Central Valley's abundant agricultural industry also means abundant pesticides. Farmers apply pesticides on their crops to kill bugs and ensure a good yield, among other reasons. And most of those pesticides are heavily regulated. Even so, they can have unintended consequences, especially for the farm workers who apply them or residents who live near fields. But now, residents can get a heads up before certain pesticides are sprayed nearby. The state's Department of Pesticide Regulation just rolled out a system this week called Spray Days California, which will text or email people ahead of applications. The new system was a long time coming and was championed by a group of concerned Kern County residents. I spoke about this milestone in environmental advocacy with Cesar Aguirre. He is the Associate Director of the Air and Climate Team for the Central California Environmental Justice Network. He starts by explaining how Valley residents were key to the program's inception.
Spray days is something that is very important, not only to farm working communities, but anyone that has pesticide applications anywhere near their home, the schools that their children go to, their places of work. And this is something that the Shafter Community Steering Committee asked for through a steering committee that was formed from AB 617, which is basically taking cap and trade money and making sure that the most overburdened communities, that have the highest levels of pollution, making sure that they get the help that they need, right? Because life isn't fair and people deal with things differently at different levels. And we should make sure that those who have the dirtiest air anywhere in the nation, which is what Kern has, we're the only air basin in the entire United States that hasn't met the air quality standards that were set by Bill Clinton back in 1997, let alone many of the newer ones that were set since then. So one of those main focuses for folks down in Shafter was getting a pesticide notification, making sure that they knew when pesticides were applied near and around their homes, not so that they could, panic or cause an uproar, but so that they could protect themselves. And that's what Spray Days does. We don't think this is restrictive in any way. We don't think this is anything that's meant to demonize or villainize anyone. This is simply basic respect to notify folks whenever there are restricted materials applied next to them so that they could take precautionary measures.
Yeah, I want to hone in on those restricted material pesticides because this is a specific kind of pesticide that's a bit stronger and can actually harm the person applying it if it's not done correctly. So growers or any pesticide applicators actually do have to tell the county ag commissioner if they're intending to spray these and get approval. Now, I know your organization trains farm workers and residents about the health impacts of these pesticides. I'm curious more generally, what are some of the things you teach?
Yeah, before I joined CCEJ and I went through a cohort program where I got my pesticide safety training certification. And really what they say is the label is the law, right? But the labels are filled with complex symbols that you have to be familiar with and language and, chemistry terms. So this is something that just because we have access to the information doesn't mean we have access to the knowledge to interpret this information.
Sure.
And one thing that we train folks on is the ways to protect themselves, right? Whenever you see, smell, or feel something, what you should do, noticing when sprayers are happening and letting folks know when and where they should be happening, when to make reports, if they ever feel uncomfortable with something like pesticides being sprayed whenever there's high winds near their home, to make reports to our reporting network called IVEN. So we really like to educate folks on what to do whenever they feel, see, or hear something that they feel is not right so that they can take those precautionary measures and protect themselves and their families.
Sure. More generally speaking, do we have an idea about how many pesticides are being used here in the valley? I mean, I would think it would be countless considering all the different crops and all the different needs of those crops. But do we have an idea of that information?
Yeah, it's tons of pounds per year. The Shafter Steering Committee has even received information from DPR, or the Department of Pesticide Regulations, about the higher than usual contaminations of pesticides like 1,3-D, right, which contaminated their drinking water. And unfortunately, sometimes different agencies have, quote unquote, scientific differences in interpretation of these things. But, reality is reality, and these pesticides are unsafe for folks, and exposure to these pesticides is unsafe.
I'm wondering, Caesar, do we have examples of anyone who's been impacted by nearby pesticide use?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, on our reporting platform, we seldom get reports of folks in Lamont that had sprayers that would operate in high winds whenever the wind was coming towards them. In Shafter, the reason it came up is because there's folks that are separated only by a chain link fence from the sprayers that are on the other side of their chain link fence, right? So there's thousands and thousands of folks in California that live right across from fields that are having these fumigants and restricted materials applied to. There's schools that are right across from fields that are having these restricted materials applied to. And sometimes when it rains and they can't get the sprayers in there, they'll do it with planes. And with planes, there's a much higher chance of these restricted materials that do have a known danger to health to spread to the folks that are living next to it. The Camino Real school in Arvin has houses across the street to the north and to the northwest, and then it has a field across the street, like directly to the west. And we've gotten many complaints from the folks that live nearby, worried, saying, how is it allowed that they can apply these types of pesticides, not only next to my home, but next to the school? So there's countless examples of pesticide applications that are happening not only near residents, but near schools, near places of work that, should be getting notification.
So if folks sign up for these Spray Days California alerts and they get one, what should they do?
Yeah, so Kern County already has a grower-to-grower notification. So this is something that had already existed here in Kern County, and it's as specific from grower to grower. So literally, your neighbor next door to you can say, "Hey, I'm spraying," right? And for spray days, it's a grid of 1 square miles. So if your residence falls within that one grid, you can put the address in, and anywhere in that 1 square, you'll get 48 hours to 24 hours of notification whenever it's being sprayed. And it could be done better. We need more granular information, which means we need to know where it's being applied. We just know that it's being applied within 1 square mile in that grid, not where it's being applied. Is it to the north? Is it to the south? Is it 1 mile away? Is it right next to my house? Mm-hmm. So better information needs to be had. And the beauty of the system is that you can put up to 10 addresses in, right? So you could put your home address, you could put your child's school, you could put your work address. If you live on the edge of that square mile grid, you can put your neighbor's address and get the mile next to you. So there you can put up to 10 addresses to get 10 different locations to get notifications through email or through text.
That was Cesar Aguirre, Associate Director of the Air and Climate Team for the Central California Environmental Justice Network. You can find out more about Spray Days California and sign up for alerts by visiting spraydays.cdpr.ca.gov. And that is today's show. Enjoy listening to Central Valley Daily? Support the show by leaving a 5-star rating in your podcast app. Thanks for your support. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. You can find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
Each morning, it's a new opportunity, a chance to start fresh. Up First from NPR makes each morning an opportunity to learn and to understand. Choose to join the world every morning with Up First, a podcast that hands you everything going on across the globe and down the street, all in 15 minutes or less. Start your day informed and anew with Up First by subscribing wherever you get your podcasts.